Shooting down one of the large tubes behind them, a torrent of trash spews out around onto the ground. Shocked beyond all measure, all Rudo and the others can do is watch as the flood consumes them. Things get more heated as they come across two paths, splitting up the team as Engine goes down one of them and Zanka goes down the other. On the other side of the cave, a washed up Zanka is still trying to find his footing when a portal opens up in front of him. Jaba's hand in all its painted glory is the first thing he sees coming out of it. The freak can't stop smiling as he crawls his way out of the portal, happy to see Mr. Bad Attitude again. Powering up his rod, Zanka prepares to face off against Jaba, but the battle-ready freak seems too happy about the impending beatdown. In his eyes, he'd love nothing more than to take a beating from Zanka here. Inside of Zanka's mind, the moment he saw Jaba in front of him, he knew whatever it was these guys were plotting took a back seat. The only thing flowing through his mind was fight. Thrusting his vital instrument with all his might, Zanka tries to knock Jaba's head clean off, but the raider catches the rod. Applying extra pressure, Zanka forces Jaba to let go, making him squat as the rod just goes over his head. Maintaining eye contact, the raider attempts to slash at him, but Zanka quickly evades. Seeing the next attack coming too, he blocks it again with his vital instrument. Things begin to heat up as both parties go crazy with their attacks, slashing and swinging like their lives depend on it. A split second of silence breaks the battle for a moment. The silence is long enough though for Jaba to notice a gurgling sound coming from a nearby puddle. Wondering what that sound is, Jaba is so distracted that Zanka manages to attack him from behind. Unfortunately, like most of Tekashi 69's music, he misses. Jaba leaps into the air and across the cave, landing rather gently beside the puddle of strange liquid. Not knowing its content, the super masochist touches the liquid and it burns him so good that Jaba starts speaking in tongues. Barely a minute later, his claws begin to take on a new shape, oozing the very liquid that just burned him. Poor Zanka becomes even more confused and Jaba notices. The freak of nature crouches as he explains that he gets bored using the same poison on his victims over and over again. His right claw possesses a neurotoxin, whereas his left claw has the ability to mimic any poison he tries on himself first. Curious to find out how long he'll survive against this new toxin, Jaba whips his hand forth, sending out a bunch of drop-sized globlets. The cleaner had managed to evade most of Jaba's poisonous goop, but some of it had hit him in the face. Out of annoyance, he'd approached the puddle of poison and uprooted it. Jaba, who's just standing there, is kind of surprised that he didn't dodge the goop at all, but bro admits he can take hit after hit from this gunk. It's nothing in comparison to actually getting shit on his clothes. From his point of view, Jaba seems to also like poison, so he decides to send the entire puddle in his direction using his technique, earth flipping. Sadly, his attempt to both crush and poison Jaba fails colossally. Dust in the air, Zanka calls out to his opponent, almost certain that he's still alive and unhurt. He eventually checks out the rubble from the boulder, but all he sees is bubbling poison. A few seconds pass before Zanka starts to hear Jaba's irritating laughter coming from beneath the rubble. Bursting out, Jaba reveals an even greater form of his vital instrument. Turns out the dude has been holding back because none of his past opponents have ever pushed him enough to use his full strength. Jaba's claws look like they've actually just hit the Kaioken times 10, the sight of which puts the fear of God in Zanka. He physically cannot believe Jaba wasn't serious the whole time, and just watches as the raider now asks him to also go all out. He accuses the cleaner of holding back and being just like him. He's been fighting guys who are way tougher than him, so he has to hold back, otherwise normal guys have no hope to beat him. He likes to fight for real, to constantly fight and never win. That's truly what powers him up most. Now he'd like them to fight for real, to fight until their last breath. What this freak of nature truly wants is for Zanka to wipe the floor with him, and he hopes to God that the cleaner delivers. Like the surface of a lake before a storm, Zanka stays calm, his vital instrument gripped tightly in his hand. Losing his mind, Jaba goes full manic at this point, smiling from ear to ear as he hopes to be entertained to the fullest. He presses Zanka to unleash his inner beast, claiming that nothing like cleaners or raiders matter in this battle. Sadly, Zanka can't relate. The cleaner heaves a heavy sigh, remaining as calm as ever. His calmness isn't because of his strength though, but because unlike Jaba, he's out of tricks. Zanka, still as stationary as a model for an art class, watches as Jaba gets ready to launch himself right at him. Lowering his eyes, all he can think about is how the universe has put him up against another one of them, a genius. He questions how he's expected to beat a guy like that. He assumed the "I was holding back" was some extra BS. He's seen a bunch of losers say the same stuff when they try to make you think they're more gifted than they really are. But when they're legit, you can tell by the real, genuine look in their eyes. It's always the freaking same. No matter where he goes, he hears them say, there ain't no way an average Joe can beat innate talent. Spinning around, Zanka knows though that that's exactly why beating them is so damn satisfying. Launching right in, Jaba swings his talons with such destructive force that the ground just in front of Zanka gets absolutely annihilated. Luckily, our boy jumps high enough to escape, but the moment his feet touch the ground, Jaba changes direction. With a swiftness, Zanka takes a defensive stance, his rod clashing with Jaba's talons. Does this discourage Jaba though? Of course not. Not with the increased size of his talons. Thrusting his arm forward, he flicks the larger blades forwards, almost skewering Zanka, who quickly pivots off the floor. His shirt is sliced, but he luckily lands a few feet back from Jaba, untouched by the blades. The raider is nothing if not excited that Zanka survived this long. As a reward, he even offers him to use one more OP move. He begins to swing his huge talons every which way, raising chunks of rock and stone that start to get the better of Zanka's defenses. Whipping his talons back in, Jaba twists, creating a full-on twister of death that he calls Stormy Weather. He spins around in one spot, creating an edge so sharp all Zanka can do is deflect and defend against it as he's pushed back. Seeing his foe fall off balance, Jaba leaps up above him before kicking down directly into his gut, sending him shooting into the cave floor. Jaba doesn't wait for him to get back up before attacking again, flicking his talons down at him. Zanka though slides himself forward, just avoiding the blades. Fear in his eyes, he continues to wriggle, but it's too late. Jaba lurches over him and forges a sort of cage around the cleaner using his talons. Stuck between Jaba and a hard place, the raider asks him if it's truly game over. His manic smile is still pasted on his face as Jaba stares down at his prey, only to realize that he caught the claws in his freaking teeth. It's actually insane, like, God, I love this battle. And boys, it's just heating up, like this is just the beginning of the insanity that is to come. Struggling to keep the claws from going in deeper, Zanka's eyes never show defeat. Reaching for his staff, Zanka declares that it's not over yet, while recalling a certain girl from his past. For some reason, he has something to prove to someone, and this is why he fights. Moving Jaba's hand to the floor, Zanka shoves his staff deep into the raider's guts, paws, shattering his ribs. Without wasting time, Zanka then moves into place and punches the very same rib, sending Jaba rattling across the floor. For a moment there, Jaba's smile becomes gnashing teeth. He ironically even calls Zanka a sadist for punching him in the same rib he broke, but the cleaner knows he's pressed for time. With his staff outstretched, he rushes towards Jaba, bringing it down on him multiple times with vengeance. Zanka tries again and again in a cartwheel-like attack, but Jaba just keeps evading his attacks by doing backflips. By the time he lands, his manic smile returns. Furious, Zanka also charges towards his opponent, but instead of attacking him directly, he buries a part of his staff in the ground and uses it as an anchor. Lifting himself off the ground, he tries to kick the dreads off Jaba, but the raider evades. Swiftly though, Zanka grabs onto the body of his staff, does a 180 turn, and still manages to somehow land a kick to Jaba's jaw. On his way down though, Jaba flashes a smile, before flexing on the cable that connects his talons to his hand. In a flash, the blades cut through Zanka's leg. It takes the cleaner a split second to notice, and the moment he looks down, unhealthy amounts of blood gush out of the wound. Zanka's body then slaps the ground and rolls across the floor like Gojo after he got sliced in two. Curled up in a ball, the cleaner reaches for his leg, helpless as Jaba starts to walk over to him. It turns out that he was slashed by the raider's left claw, not the boring right one. What's worse is that when Jaba is fighting seriously, his claws carry the last 3 poisons he's been exposed to. In this case, the gurgling liquid from earlier, a poison that makes you lose all feeling, and one that gives you a venomously good time. Grabbing his leg, Zanka watches as blood leaks out of it, poison pulsing through the veins. Now calm, Jaba walks up to his prey, reminding him of how he claimed poison was much better than getting poop on his uniform. Without uttering another word, the raider then stabs Zanka square in the stomach, leaving him unable to comprehend what just happened. Over the course of several seconds, the light starts to fade from Zanka's eyes, and his vital instrument goes back to being an ordinary staff. In honor of Zanka's passing here, we should say, we'll be taking a trip down memory lane. His memory lane, that is. When Zanka was much younger, his father, head of the Najiku family, called him forth. He reminded Zanka of how prestigious the family is, not failing to mention that they've been nobles for countless generations. With his head bowed, Zanka listened as his dad went on about his siblings being Hellguards and having the responsibility of governing the grounds. He didn't have to explain any further for Zanka to understand that it was a call to action, a warning that he must, like the others of the Najiku family, become a well-equipped Hellguard. Zanka attended an academy in the Kamawatari district, an academy made specifically for gifted kids trying to become Hellguards. Their leader had gathered all of the new students one day and gave them the usual orientation speech about trash beasts and poisonous waste. The real point of the speech though was to instill in these kids the importance of keeping humans in line, as it is the duty of a Hellguard. While the headmaster told these newbies how it was going to be, Zanka happened to walk past. He saw two of his mates outside the class talking about the students. Walking past them, they admitted to themselves that they were no match for him. Just like his dad, Zanka possessed gifted blood. You see, these kids hated Zanka for his gifts, seeing as he never seemed bothered in class and somehow always came up in first place. They watched him go with hate in their eyes and gave up on ever beating someone as ingenious as Zanka. Not caring about what the others said about him, Zanka just ignored it all. He just went to his classroom, quietly opened the door and sat down to gloat, knowing full well that none of his classmates could ever measure up to him. Can't lie, the way he smiled makes me think Jaba was onto something when he called him a masochist earlier on. Granted, he does actually work like a madman behind the scenes here, pushing himself to the limit. Mainly so that he knows that he would take first place in the end, and he'd do it without even breaking a sweat. He'd all but finished this train of thought when the headmaster walked in. After the initial formalities, the headmaster explained that criminal activity had increased among the givers, and now it's imperative that they train students into Hellguards strong enough to resist them. Apparently Zanka and his mates, if you could call them that, were 3 years into their training at the time, and the headmaster made it known that the academy respects talent. In that regard, the headmaster invited a new girl to join the class, the same one that Zanka had seen flash through his memory just before in the fight. As it turned out, she was talented beyond her years, and so exceptional that she caught the eyes of the higher-ups. Upon hearing this, Zanka's eyes grew wide with the realization that they just gave him some competition. In the Central Hellguards Training Academy, there was a chair. Not any old regular chair, but a special one that they referred to as the Golden Throne, and only the best of the best were allowed to sit on it for the year. Outside now, the headmaster had all of his third-year students set out for a mock battle, and as the heavens would have it, the new girl beats them senseless in it, including Zanka, who happened to be her last victim. She beats his ass by trapping him in a headlock, her dagger pressed against the side of his neck. Referring to her as Hyo, the headmaster congratulated her and announced that she had a real chance at claiming the Golden Throne. Hyo didn't seem excited about her victory though. In fact, she glared at her classmates and walked away from the group. She'd barely taken 2 steps before the haters began gossiping about her indifferent attitude and how they hated how much praise she got from the headmaster. More students joined in on the shit talking, blaming their failure to beat Hyo on the most flimsy of things. In all of this, Zanka couldn't believe his eyes. Even his haters were shocked that Hyo managed to beat his almighty ass. Zanka though presented his most I ain't worried face, flashing a weak smile as he admitted that Hyo was a tough opponent. Walking off seemingly unconcerned, he notes how it was cool to see her fighting style, but he really needs to train more. After escaping their judgmental eyes, Zanka let himself feel the hate. He bites his lower lip so hard that his teeth drew blood, and flashbacks about his loss re-enter his mind. He kept trying to reassure himself that his loss was just a fluke when suddenly Hyo showed up. Immediately, Zanka adjusted his posture, his attitude, basically everything. Hyo herself couldn't care less. She walked over here just because she simply wanted a place to drink some water. Needing to stay calm himself, Zanka goes on to commend her fighting skills as she drank, mentioning how she was already a candidate for the Golden Throne. Hyo though didn't really understand why everyone was going crazy over a freaking chair, so she asked Zanka about it. As it turns out, anyone seated on the Golden Throne would get recognition and would be counted as one of the greats. Even after his explanation though, Hyo didn't really see the point of wanting to just sit, and accused Zanka of wanting people to tell him how great he actually is. She asked him what the point of all of this even was. Going quiet, Zanka remembers that when the real deal does come along, it's easy for the fakes to start flaking off. They degenerate in the fakest of ways. He classified these fakes into 3 groups: the ones who copied the real thing, the ones who tried to steal from the real thing, and the ones who wasted their lives hating on the real thing. The idea of it all began to make him sick. One fateful day, the headmaster came to class with weapons of all kinds, spread them on a table, and announced that they'd be having a special lesson. Usually Hellguards are supposed to have mastery of multiple weapons, with specialization in just one, so pretty much they need to choose a weapon that they're going to specialize in here. 3 days later, after that lesson concluded, a traveler sat beside a well with his companion on the floor nearby. Why are we even here? How does this area concern us? Well, it's because Zanka was crouched up at the bottom of this well. This wonderful stranger happened upon him, and Zanka opened up about how he chose a freaking stick during his training. None of this explained what he was doing at the bottom of a well, so the stranger pressed him for more info. His head bowed in desolation. Zanka admitted that he found a hole and crawled into it. He had fucked up so badly that he never wanted to see the light of day again. The stranger didn't believe him though. Instead, he tried tempting Zanka with some leaf-shaped manju snacks. Obviously, it didn't work, but it got Zanka to lift his head. He opened up some more too, mentioning how he expected Hyo to pick a weapon that suited her idea of toughness. As we all know, and as we've seen in this flashback here, Zanka is hell-bent on proving that he's different. We know he's been like this since he was young. Sadly, this identity crisis also pushed him to pick up a useless weapon, a freaking stick. He thought it was original, and maybe it would even have hidden potential. However, even his headmaster was extremely confused when Zanka picked it up because the stick was only mixed in with the weapons by mistake. Everyone else shot him disappointed looks, and it only got worse when it was time for Hyo to choose a weapon. Zanka considered her to be the real deal, and to his surprise, she picked the most ordinary weapon ever, a katana. At the thought of this, Zanka couldn't help but start laughing at himself. Seemingly delirious, he began to call himself a loser, repeating it time and time again. He believed that there was truly nothing an average Joe could do to beat a genius. This wonderful stranger munched on his manju for the next few seconds before asking Zanka if he can't simply become an average Joe that's better than a genius. Thinking it over in his head, this question shook Zanka to his core. The stranger believed he wasn't actually serious about his claims, seeing as he was still holding onto the stick even now, 3 days after claiming it. The way he saw it, knowing your weakness was a surefire way to grow stronger. Standing up, the stranger promised to return for the leaf-flavoured manju in the town, but before he left, he made Zanka make him a promise in return. The stranger was of course our freaking GOAT Engine on his journey on what I assume was probably to build up his guild or something. I'd love to know like more or just see more of it in general. We'll probably get it throughout the life of the series. He asked Zanka to promise to him to prove that an average Joe could be better than a genius. With this, Engine and Rio turned to leave, and minutes later, Zanka climbed out of the well. Back in the present and rising back to his feet, he stretches his hand and summons his staff. Within a second, the staff obeys, flicking through the air until it lands in Zanka's grasp. Now furious, he screams at the top of his lungs that he's going to show Jaba the latent abilities of an average Joe. Or at least he would have if he hadn't been affected by the venomously good hallucinogenic. Jaba, on the other hand, just sits there beside him, laughing at every little noise the poisoned cleaner makes. Starting to get bored, Jaba begins to sing and dance, pulling off smooth crip walks as he reminisces on all of the poisons he used on Zanka. Of course, his favourite of the three is the hallucinogenic. He even squats beside Zanka to get a first-hand review. He got it from this guy who was trying to kill him a while back, and the effects are so damn strong you get the sense they're actually real. Cracking up, the raider gets the shock of his life though when he tries to laugh. Makes sense after he had his ribs just smashed by Zanka. Unfortunately, this ruins the fun for Jaba, who expected him to hold out for much longer. Looking away, Jaba wonders how the other cleaners did against all of his colleagues, only for his attention to be brought back to a laughing Zanka. I'm sorry, but it's actually insane like how all of this has played out so far. With Zanka laughing there so much, Jaba himself decides to join on in. Getting down next to him, the two just lay there laughing at the outcomes of their battles. Grabbing him by the boot, the poor cleaner just smiles as he gets dragged across the cave's floor. The raider jumps for joy at the thought of how much Zodala is going to praise him, yet before his feet touch the ground, a mysterious person appears in the darkness and shoots a hole right through it. It takes Jaba a moment to realize that he's being shot, and another to realize that he has no idea who freaking did it. Turning to his left, he can see the culprit with a gun. But, you know, we don't exactly get that info yet. Such a great twist though, like damn, I did not see that coming in the slightest. Just like everything in this battle I did not see coming in the slightest. Zanka thinking he's like coming back and actually fighting in this dream-like kind of drugged out state. Probably have to beep drugs there or whatever because I can't say that on YouTube these days, which is insane, but you know.